Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome back to another Demystifying Post-Production Motion Monday. My name is Ellie and I'm a trainer at Maxon, and I'm joined once again by some very special people, Anna, Dustin, and Chad. How's it going, guys? Happy Monday.
Amazing. Happy Monday, everyone.
And happy Monday to everyone in the chat. We got a big happy Monday from Chris, and we got Marcelo, Amy, Bern, Brian, Hannah, Jay, Charles, Leo, Mimo, Drake. It is great to have you guys with us. Hey, thanks for being here live. So before we get into what we're going to be doing today, I just thought I'd talk to you guys about the stuff that's happening this week. In case you don't already know, we have a Maxon events page, and on here you can see all the great stuff that we're doing as like a whole Maxon Training Team collective. And so today, Mondays, Demystifying Post-Production, we'll be diving into what we're going to be doing inside of Redshift in a couple of minutes. And then on Wednesday, you can see we've got a little 2-for-1 going on Wednesday. We have our 3D motion design show, and we also have our hands-on with Maxon C4D level up, and that's going to be part 3, when we're going to be, me and Matt are going to be diving into some stuff with simulation. So the new rope dynamics, we're going to look at particles, and we're going to look at forces as well. And then, of course, some Redshift stuff as well, because why not? Then on Thursday, we have another Ask the Trainer, where we're going to be looking at working with axes. I always struggle saying that word. We're not working with axes. We're not going to be doing no axe throwing. We're working with axes, just to clarify. And then on Friday, we have our wonderful Vertex and Chill with Seth and Hashi. So yeah, if you want to see all the great stuff that's happening, just head over to maxon.net/events and you can get to this page where you can register for everything. All you got to do, click on it, and there's like registration stuff at the bottom. Super simple. If you ever miss any of our sessions, or you want to learn some great stuff inside of all the variety of the Maxon tools, all you have to do is head over to the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel, and then you get this lovely channel here where you can see not only our upcoming live streams of Ask the Trainer and Maxon Color, but also all the wonderful recordings of all of our sessions, because yes, this is being recorded, and we do upload pretty much by the next day, kind of within 24 hours is our plan. And all of these links, I'm hoping, are in the handout section of GoToWebinar, so you can find those links on there, as well as a link, a super secret link for the Maxon merch store where you can grab a Maxon t-shirt. And all you got to do, type in the password, 3D Workflows, and it's good for one shirt. All you have to do is pay for shipping. And then we also have project files on there and those 2 links that we were just talking about now. Cool, so I wanted to do that really quickly because, as we know, we love to overrun. I love to fill these sessions with a lot too much stuff, really. So let's talk about what we're going to be doing today. So this whole series, we've been looking at sculpting in ZBrush. So Anna sculpted our amazing Carl the Kraken, which is now our new hashtag of this series. And then we brought Carl into Cinema 4D and we created that environment. So last week we put a whole bunch of models together, created that kind of Poseidon archway, and positioned Carl nicely in our kind of underwater scene, with the purpose of today of rendering inside of Redshift. And so the first thing I actually want to do is I wanted to talk with Anna about the materials. So the materials inside of ZBrush, and I thought we'd have a little conversation about that. We're then going to bring Carl back in using GoZ, and I'm going to position him nicely in the scene we created, and then hopefully make a cool looking underwater scene. So yeah. I thought we'd do that. Let me just move this out of the way for now, and let me head over to ZBrush. And Anna, I wonder if you can probably talk about this a lot better than I can with your kind of plans for texturing and UVing and bringing everything in.
Do you want me to share my screen so I can show them how I did it?
Oh yeah, that could be good actually. Let me chuck this over to you. That would be wonderful. There you go. I just threw it over.
Sorry, give me 1 sec. It's the wrong monitor, right?
Huh? That wasn't that one. Yeah.
Is this the right monitor? We're good?
Yeah, there it is.
All right. So here we have Carl, the Kraken.
Gorgeous.
All right. So in order to get this coloring, which I used polypaint for, by the way, polypainting is just kind of like per vertex painting in ZBrush. I polypainted it straight onto Carl using the paintbrush, but that kind of can cause a little bit of an issue when translating the color from ZBrush to other software. Most software requires a texture map. So the way we had to do this was I merged all of the subtools within Carl to make it simpler for myself and for Elly. So you can see that here that I only have one subtool, which is just Carl, right? Then I went up here to Z plugin and I selected UV master, and I literally just hit unwrap. And what that did was it unwrapped the whole model for me automatically. There's a lot of functions you can do to improve your UV map. However, for this one, I just wanted to keep it simple. I left all the settings default. I waited for about 4 minutes, and then by the end of the 4 minutes, Carl was automatically unwrapped. Once that was done, I checked the UV map by going to the UV map option here in the tool panel, and I said morph UV, which will basically turn him into his UV map. So I can check how it looks. It was UV'd, as I was able to confirm. Once that was done, I was able to go to texture map and go to create new from polypaint. And what that will do is it'll take the polypaint that was applied ahead of time and create a texture map from the polypaint. This is what it ended up looking like, as you can see it right here. So once that's done, I could rest easy knowing that he was unwrapped and he had a texture on him. So I sent the Z tool to Elly, and she was just able to use Go Z to import it into Cinema 4D like she did last week. No other operation was necessary, and all of the materials, which in this case is just one diffuse map for the coloring, is in Cinema 4D now. And that's it.
Cool. Thanks for explaining that. That's wicked. Let me reshare my screen with my name.
While you're doing that,
yeah.
Anna, are you planning on live streaming Carl again, like your progress or work on him?
There's a good chance that yes, I will stream him on Sunday because I am a little behind schedule and I need every moment I can get. So
awesome. You
I'll
should
probably be streaming him on Sunday.
You should post your link in the chat.
Okie dokie. I'll be streaming him on ZBrush Live, the official ZBrush channel, and my own channel.
Sweet.
Cool. We can probably drop those links as well in like the chat and questions area. Couldn't we? Right, so I've just for anyone who kind of missed what I just did, I just did that process that Anna said about exporting from GoZ, and now it's brought our lovely Carl the Kraken straight into the project that I've been working on last week. So you might recognize this. I made a couple of minor changes. My plan was to make a lot more changes, but I ran out of time, like we do as artists and designers who are kind of busy. So let me just what I want to do. Let me find Carl. Here we go. So let me drop this into my null, and let me move this out of the way so I can actually see what I'm doing. And I'm gonna just zero this out. There we go. And scale this whole guy down. Oh, my computer's being a little bit slow today. This isn't gonna be good.
I'm guessing Carl's kind of dense. Is that accurate?
Let me check how dense Carl is. Carl has 230,000 polygons.
Oh, that doesn't sound bad.
Let me just sort of get rid of this one. I'm gonna get rid of this one here.
And in saying that, it's not that I
help.
wasn't trying to shake your computer, Elly. I'm sure your computer is very powerful.
Shame my machine.
Doing a great job.
Let me just. I don't know why this is being a little bit. Moves fine, just doesn't scale down fine. Let me just kind of do this. And maybe something like that. So yeah, everything else seems to be working absolutely fine. But moving Carl is not going well. Maybe it is the density of the mesh. Is it more dense than the last one, or is it?
It should be around the same.
Should be around the same.
There's more
Okay.
density on the head, but I also ripped out the back legs and made them really the tail low poly, so it kind of compensates.
Okay, cool. What I'll do, I'll just like put him in place, and then maybe I'll like everything else works fine. It just seems to be moving him is a bit struggle city for my machine, but that's fine. Let me just leave it like that for now because I'm not too fussed about this. Right. So this is what we
Does
have.
the material slow
We've
things
got-
down? Does that change anything at all?
It may be the polypaint. Dustin, did we talk about this in the other sessions? Was it
Yeah,
the
I was
polypaint
gonna say it definitely might be the Vertex.
Yeah.
Vertex color that we had there, because we ran into a little bit of that last month, but not too heavily.
Okay.
But there is also a lot more information on Carl. So that might be it. If you have a texture map, you could probably get rid of that tag and see if that helps.
Let's see.
Or could you make the viewport so it's not?
This is cool. I mean, he's in place. He's in place. We're cool with this. We're cool with this. I'm happy with that. He's in place now. Everything else seems to be working fine and quickly, which is good. Cool. Yeah. So my plan for today, diving into some Redshift, and I kind of want to set like the bar here, like the standard, that we're not going to be able to do absolutely everything that we would want to do with like a final shot now. Like lighting, materials, all the extra stuff and the AOVs would be like individual hours on their own. But my plan is to show some different techniques with the lighting, trying to make this look like an underwater scene. And for anyone who's tried to create an underwater scene in like 3D and Redshift will know that it is like, I was saying to the guys before we logged on, I was like, this is probably the one that I didn't want, but it's fun because it's challenging and it's going to make me kind of have to think about some different techniques I perhaps wouldn't normally do, and therefore I get to show some stuff that I haven't shown before, which should be fun. And then of course we want to save some time at the end to go through the AOVs, what AOVs Chad wants for next week, what's going to help with compositing, and setting those up. So I'm going to be keeping a closer eye on the time today to make sure that we can get plenty of stuff done.
So just a quick note, I did see Steve's comment here talking about the subdivision surface we have on Carl.
Mm-hmm.
That could very easily be part of what's making it a little bit more difficult.
Oh, Steve.
Yeah, there it is. Nailed it. Good job, Steve.
Oh my gosh, was it subdividing up?
It was.
I didn't even see it there.
That was, I don't know how I've got that on there. So that was a test. Congratulations. You won today, Steve.
Steve's the MVP.
What not to do again with me. Cool. Oh, that's great then. Look at this. Oh, there we go. I love to make mistakes to help people learn. Cool. Okay, right. So let's get into some lighting. That's the first thing I want to do. And so before I do anything, I'm actually going to change my renderer to Redshift. This is a new thing. And I've also, you may notice, I've changed my output to be like the Instagram story. That's just, because I know the final one is going to be that kind of thing for TikTok, I believe. So I'm just going to be working like that. And let me just get my render view up. And this is how I'm going to be working. This is how I like to work, a little side by side. Right. So what do I want to do first? Let me kick this off and see what we have going on.
Hey, Elly, your final thing is going to be 1920 by 1080 though when you render it out, right? Or no? Is this going to be like the final, this orientation?
Yeah, I can do 1920 by 1080 for you for compositing. Yeah, okay. Is that preferred?
Yeah, that'd be cool because then I could play with the background and do things with the background too.
Yeah, no, that's cool. We can, that is cool. We can do that. Okay, right. So lighting wise, so my initial thoughts is I'm going to be working with a bunch of different lighting techniques. And this is really fun for me because normally I'm like, dome light, HDR, normally looks pretty good. But for this, you have to kind of think a little bit outside the box. And I'm going to be using what are called, well, I'm going to be using area lights and gobos. And what are gobos, other than kind of like just like a funny word? Well, it's a way of creating and adding shadow to our lights without having to use like 3D geometry. Like imagine you've got like a texture or a plate over the top of your like lens or light, and it's going to help cast some nice looking shadow. And so we can do that, and we can create those, like imagine like the shadow of like the waves and the ripples on the sand here. So how do we set that up? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you in Photoshop. This was just like a image texture, and all I did was make it so it looks a bit more black and white, because originally it was, you know, like a normal blue looking texture. And I saved this out as a normal kind of JPEG file, and then I can load this into my area light, and it's going to work, and it's going to help me create those sort of like shadows on the surface of our sandy terrain. So inside of Cinema, let me grab an area light. I'm just going to position it like roughly in the right place. Like I'll end up tweaking this and changing this. I'm just going to angle it 90 degrees down, and then we're going to pull it right up. Just pull this right up to something like this, and then we're going to make it a bit bigger. So maybe like 800 by 800, and we can position it over here for now. Like we said, we can always change this stuff later on. And my intensity, we're going to make something like 3. Okay, so if I kick off my render view, I'll let it have a little think about it.
Elly, while that's rendering, I noticed that the Vertex paint isn't showing up in the Redshift render view. Like, is there a way to do that? Because like the paint is living on, oh, that looks really sick. The paint is living on a tag and not on a material, right?
So it's on a material. I just need to I need to convert it to a Redshift material, which I think is why it's not showing currently.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to derail you. I was just a quick question.
No, it's all good. It is all good. You know me, I love your questions, Chad. Okay, so right, we have our area light showing, just single area light, not really doing much at the moment. But what we can do, when we come down into object tag, into the color, we have this little texture input here. And what we can do, we can click our little icon, and then I just titled this Underwater Gobo, and I can share this as well. This is absolutely fine. And I'm going to open this. We got a slight kind of like dimming of the light, but we can't actually see those lines and that shadows that we were expecting. And the main reason for that is actually because of the spread in our light. And so what it's doing, think of the spread as like a way of like softening the light and the shadow. So it's softening it so much that we can't see it anymore. So if I put this straight down to 0, it's then going to be sharpening up all of that light. So you can now see on these areas here, we're getting this shadow being kind of like projected down and being cast on our terrain, and it makes it look a little bit more like imagine like the ocean ripples sort of casting shadows down. And we could even do like a little bit of like softening, so it's a little bit less harsh. Yeah, and this is how you can do it, and you can get gobos from anywhere. You can create them. So I kind of semi-created that one, but yeah, you can create them. All you have to be is grayscale, and then we can tint them, we can color them as well. So that's what we're going to do. But for now, I'm actually just going to add a couple more of these. So let me just sort of pull this one back. I'm just going to duplicate them, because one thing to bear in mind is if I enlarge this light, my texture is also going to be bigger. So I can demonstrate that by making this smaller. So if we want like a smaller, tighter looking shadow and reflection, we can make this smaller. Let's go maybe half the size. And so because it's taking up a smaller area, we're getting a tighter version of that texture as well. So let me bring that back to 800. And then I think I just ended up kind of doing like 3 of these maybe. just so we're still casting that light everywhere. And yeah, I think that looks like really nice, like in comparison to what it looked like before. And to recreate that shadow and that style and texture could be a little bit more challenging than literally just dropping a texture and what we call a gobo into our area light. And then from here, I'm gonna kind of fake the impression of underwater by tinting things sort of like a greeny blue in the hopes that that works. And I've actually got a couple of like colors already that I've got in mind, so I'm just going to kind of copy these over, highlight all my lights, maybe let's like reduce this intensity because I still want it to be kind of like dark and gloomy. So let me just drop my color down, get a little hex number, and so this is the color that I'm going to just sort of like tint everything. And this is cool, this is fine. I know it's looking like super dark right now, and that's not a problem because we can bring some more of the detail out and bring some more lighting by adding dome lights, and also when we add a Redshift environment to do some volumetric lighting as well.
Does look super cool.
So from here, I am going to actually add a dome light. I feel like it wouldn't be a render of mine without actually adding in a dome light. I did have a little play kind of like just before the session, trying with some sunlight, but I couldn't get the sort of feel that I was hoping for. Whereas with the dome light, I can just cast, I can bring up some of those shadows, and that's the way I'm thinking less realism and more like, okay, what's gonna bring some of like those darker areas up. And again, I've got a color. I'm just going to tint this dome light. So I'm not even fussed about a HDRI image. It's just basically a darker shade of the one that we're using for the area light. And so now if I switch this like off and on, it's not doing too much, but it's bringing up some of those darker areas. And we also now have this sort of like this nice tealy color in the background. And so now when we add and create some volumetric lighting, it should create like a nice look. Cool. Right, from here, let's set up our volumetric lighting now. And as always, if people have suggestions and ideas from, you know, the guys that are here, the gang, and also the people in the questions area from watching us live, you know, we do love a good live suggestion. I can't promise I can do it. I can promise I can try. Right, so let's drop in a Redshift environment and everything's gonna go crazy. And the reason for this is by default, for anyone that is using like maybe like an older version of Redshift, by default, our volume contribution is now set to 1, which means all of our lights are having a contribution to this volumetric lighting. And I mean, yeah, we can all agree it's a little bit much right now, right? So what I'm actually gonna do is I think for my dome light, I don't want any volume contribution. I don't want my dome light to be having an effect at all. And so already this is looking okay actually. So we've got rid of the kind of crazy intense fog. We're just now using our area lights, our 3 area lights, having a volume contribution. And now what it's doing is it's, you know, the good thing with volumetric lighting is it's very forgiving. And so as we're saying, it's going to create that idea of depth, creates atmosphere, and it now has created a slightly more underwater style look. We can come into our area lights and we can control how much contribution they have on our volume. And so if we have 0, we now don't have any volumetric lighting because we need to have a light contribution in order for some attenuation to happen. And so we can start to pull this value up and we can get more and more of this fog atmospheric look. I quite like quite a bit of this. I think it's quite good. Like it's going to look noisy and grainy in here, but if I let it progressively render for a while, it will start to get cleaner and cleaner. And so maybe we can leave it like this for now. I might end up tweaking some of these settings a little bit later on. We can also come into our actual Redshift environment, which is what is also helping to generate our volumetric lighting. And we can come in and we can control some of our volume scattering settings. So we have our scattering. So if we sort of kind of pull this down, this is what's creating that sort of like volume scattering effect. So our scattering of light. So the higher this number, we can see we get effectively like a more intense and a more bright type of volumetric lighting. So let me, I quite liked whatever it was on by default, which was 0.1. And then we have attenuation. Attenuation is how much light's going to be attenuated. And so in my head, it works like thickness of fog. So we can sort of like pull this up and you can see, I think the best way to kind of demonstrate this is at the moment we can see our rocks in the background, these big kind of like rocky mountains, which if we come into here, we can see it quite far back in comparison to Carl and the rest of the stuff in our scene. And so as we increase our attenuation, we're getting these darker sort of areas. And what do you guys think? What do people think? Do we want more? Do we want it to be kind of like dark and spooky behind him? I think that would be more like realistic if we're talking. What do you guys think?
I agree. I like the idea of that. I also like the idea of somehow maybe rim lighting Carl a little bit. But that's also because I'm a sucker for rim lights. It doesn't matter what it's on. So
yeah,
it's kind of my little bit of a contribution to the discussion.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I was thinking of, so yeah, my version of potentially rim lighting him was going to be doing some like God rays with a spotlight on him, and to give the impression that hopefully it looks a little bit more underwater, and then also it would cast some more light on him as well. So let's do that.
So
would
that be directly from the sun? My I guess kind of initial thought was to be some type of like underwater, I don't know, submarine device, and then I was looking at the wooden boat, and I'm like, I don't know exactly when when it all fits.
Oh yeah, I was thinking of just doing like a spotlight from above to give the impression that like, yeah, the light from what is effectively above the ocean coming down and in.
For sure.
We could do a little test of the two, see what we think.
Yeah, I like it.
Another thing to remember for compositing is that like it's kind of like a challenge. Like I've done that stuff, I work in 3D and then I know I'm taking it to After Effects to do the final compositing. It's always kind of like this like back and forth, push pull, toss up, because when I'm in 3D, it's very difficult to not make it look final and perfect. But like I think that we all want the final to be dark and spooky and like really moody. But if we don't have the assets, like if we don't have kind of like a background to play with, then it creates a kind of like disproportionate scale that's tough to play with. So like the ratio of the darkness and the background, like that like the dark background that's there right now, like that might be what we want in the final, but we also might want to darken the foreground, and so the ratios are off there. So if everything's kind of like a little bit too bright, then we also want to make sure that the background's a little bit too bright, so that when we pull it all down, it pulls down at the same ratio. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Pretty much just making sure that the dynamic range is there, between it's kind of a balance between foreground, midground, background. And it totally makes sense.
Like almost like if you were there on set with like a light meter, like you're trying to get like the exposure settings for like the background, and you want to make sure that the ratio between like that sand in the foreground and the background are like similar in proportion to the rest of the thing, so that when you darken everything, then the final looks like this, but then the foreground is also darkened in the same way. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll do some tweaking then of this, because I imagine, this is probably a bit too dark then for what you're going to need, Chad. But we can do some
honestly
tweaking.
Like kind of as you're working, Elly, like this is one of the areas where I might kind of help solve some of that is just by using a dome light, and actually like allowing that to contribute some, because those automatically, so The way that I think of it, and I do a lot of my post work in Photoshop, but it's really the same method. Is that I'll use that Z depth pass, or the volume mask, whatever, different passes to start pushing that stuff in post when I'm grading. So it's, definitely making sure that you have information there. But I mean,
Okay,
Carl
some good
looks dope
advice.
with a black background too, so we'll let Chad have fun with it in post.
Yeah, I want to try and make it, not as hard as possible for Chad to have to
Right.
fix. Cool. Let me just add in a spotlight and try and create some of those like fake looking god rays. 'Cause I've got a couple of little like tricks ish for this. So let me grab myself a spotlight. And I'm going to do my lazy man's version of targeting a light and just add a target tag. And we're going to target Carl. We're going to target a little Kraken dude here. And then let me just reposition this up and over the top.
Oh, I like that feature. The targeting.
Oh yeah, this is,
I did not
I'm
know.
a bit lazy, so. Okay, cool. Yeah, so let me kind of tweak this a bit more. Which view do I want to be in?
That shadow
Okay.
coming from his head is actually pretty dope. Like, I know it's hiding him completely, but isn't it very Lovecraftian now?
Oh, that's it. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining today's
Thanks for
stream.
joining.
Nailed it.
Okay, cool. So let me just leave everything as it is for now. I won't be leaving it actually as this. I might even bring this down.
I love how the frame frames him so much more with that. Like the frame creates a more stark frame when you have him illuminated and the arch in the foreground is still dark. I love that.
Cool. Right, okay, so from here, before I change anything else in the spotlights, what I did was kind of reduce the intensity a little bit because it was all a little bit much. And we are going to change the color and then maybe the volume contribution, but I do want to make it look a little bit, I want to break it up a little bit. And we can do this by actually we can kind of fake this by we could use that same texture. We can actually use that same texture inside of our spotlight, but another way of doing it, and I thought I wanted to show like a different way just for the purposes of showing another technique, is by using a plane and then like a Maxon noise or any kind of noise with a texture with some opacity. And so effectively we're going to almost create a version of these ripples, put it in front of our spotlight as if you would kind of in the real world. And it's going to cast some of those ripples and some of those shadows, and hopefully it's going to break up these god rays and make it look like they are coming through the ripples and the waves of the sea. So the way I'm going to do this is grabbing a plane. I'm going to make it a child of my spotlight. And the reason for that is just so I can come into my coordinates and I can very quickly just zero everything out, and it's then going to be in the same kind of zero position as our spotlight. Then I do need to, what is it going to be, plus Z? Is that plus Z going to be the right one? I think so. And then let me sort of pull this down like that. There we go. So it's now angled. Is that angled in the same? Yeah. It's messing with my eyes. Yeah, cool. That is angled in the same kind of place. So now when I kick this off, it should be blocking this. She says. Why did I know that was going to happen? Oh, okay, right. I don't know if anyone knows a trick of solving this that isn't saving, closing, and reopening. If you do, please let me know. Dustin, do you get that when you work in Redshift? Do you get that wonderful error message?
I was sitting here just feeling the pain.
Feeling the pain.
Yeah.
I do love that message.
for me, it's usually just closing. There are times where I'll just restart. I'll just try to restart the render, and it will pick back up. But
okay.
most often, I just dump it and close and reopen.
Cool. Yeah. Yep. So if you ever get that error, don't worry. So do we. To be fair, yeah, I
That's
did
so real
get it
life.
earlier. This is what happens in the real world. Cool. So yeah, take two. We'll cut that bit out. Cool. So once this now works, the plane should have effectively now blocked our spotlight. Here we go. So it's now blocked our spotlight. And I know we can see it here. I'm not fussed about that for now. So it's completely blocking that spotlight, and therefore it's now completely blocking those God rays. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create just a plain old Redshift material. And I'm going to drop that onto my plane. I'm going to double click, and I'm going to open my node editor, because that's where I want to be working. And then we can just, just put our roughness on 1. Actually, no, ignore me. Put our weight of reflectance down to 0, because we're not fussed about that at all. And I'm just going to double click and drop in a Maxon noise. And let me just solo this. I can't really see that. That's not a problem. I think I know what I want to go for anyway. There is something called stipple, and it creates these really nice looking displaced ripples. And I'm going to use that. I'm going to plug that into my opacity. We're going to kick this off. It's not going to do anything for now, and I need to tweak a few settings. So first things first, let's come into our input, and I'm going to increase my scale to something like 8. So it's basically just kind of enlarged that noise over the top of here. And I'm going to increase my contrast, because what I want is I want to have a lot more 100% white and 100% black areas, and so then it's going to be affecting my opacity a lot more. So let me go 0.8. Let me go 0.8 on here. Cool. Let me just sort of like redo this. And it should then start to cast some light through. And it should then create some of those God rays coming through, which it has not. I'm unsure why this isn't doing what I am expecting it to do.
My guess could be is maybe just like the overall scale of the noise to like where the light is actually going through your plane. And maybe like the opacity there is pretty heavy. I don't know if there's really a way. Yeah, you'd almost have to move it and look.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you see it in the render view? Wouldn't you see the noise on the plane? If it's like right there, wouldn't you see? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so you can see that there, but I'm not really sure why it's not doing. So there we go, we get that. And if I switch this dude back on, it's almost not creating the opacity.
You still have the noise soloed.
Did it earlier. Okay. I guess we won't do that technique. Worked absolutely fine earlier. And I'm unsure as to why. Now it's not doing what I want it to do.
Yeah,
That's
it's
really
hard sometimes to it's hard sometimes to tell when I don't have the scene open. I feel like there's
Yeah.
certain certain times where you're like troubleshooting it as you go.
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time
Yeah.
on it, really.
When you apply, just side note, when you apply like a texture to like a plane or like a gobo type thing like that, does it have to be like, is two-sided an issue? Like, is there a wrong side and a right side, or does it apply it to both sides? It doesn't matter, like if for a gobo thing for the opacity.
No, it shouldn't really.
Yeah, it shouldn't matter.
It shouldn't matter,
Okay.
no. Okay, let's get rid of that then. And let's just drop our texture on here instead, because I want those cool like shadows. And I'm not really sure why this isn't working, because I absolutely tried this before the session and works fine. I've got another scene I can open with it working fine. Maybe I'll open that at the end and we can just have a look at it. But it's pretty sure it's the exact same technique that I did before. Okay, cool. So let's just throw in this texture and hope that this then creates a similar kind of effect.
Yeah, and you definitely could push the Maxon noise through the light itself if you were to create a graph for that, but it's a little bit different trying to create like a physical flag, with a gobo on it. It's a cool. I mean, I feel like there's so many different ways to get the approach that you're going for, and like I actually like the method of just texturing it the way that you just did it, because it's so much faster. It's
It
like
is so much faster, yeah. I was just hoping to try and create a
Yeah.
slightly different thing, but of course, it's these things love to not work for me when I'm doing a live session, but it's fine.
I totally understand.
Cool. So yeah, so all I did was use that exact same gobo on the spotlight like we did for the area light. And as you can see, it breaks up then those rays, those god rays. And I think what I would normally do is I'd make this a little bit more intense, so it breaks them up a bit more, but also texturing them. So I'm going to texture them as a lighter teal. I think that should also, yeah, sort of like lower that intensity as well. Maybe we could bring it back with a little bit more brightness, and then we can just reposition our spotlight as much as we want, because again, it's always going to target Carl. So I can pull it to the side, but I think we all kind of agreed we quite like this sort of like angle coming in, right? I think it looks pretty cool. Nice. So from here, what do we want to do next? So time wise, right, we're up for time. Let's grab this texture that was a texture that Anna created inside of ZBrush, just like she explained at the start of this session. So what we're going to do is actually have the diffuse, but because it comes in as like a standard material, and because it's in the color already, we can actually just convert this to be a Redshift material. So there's a couple of rules when it comes to converting standard materials over to Redshift. If people know the PBR workflow, where you create everything in the reflectance channel, Redshift doesn't convert those very well because it's not able to see the different layers in the reflectance channel. But if things are created inside of like the color, so we've got like our diffuse in here like we have now, and then we have like a separate bump layer or separate reflectance, it works pretty well doing these ones. And so we can do this. We can actually just come in and we can go to, let me remember where this is going to be, tools, and then convert materials, convert replace materials, etc. All we want to do is just convert and replace our material. So now when we double click, we have, good old shader graph. We have our shader graph. And so if we didn't want it to be the shader graph, we can actually just reverse that process. If we come back, is this our standard material? Cool. We can come into material, tools, and then convert material to nodes. Oh, I didn't like that. Okay, I'm just going to convert and replace the material, and we'll work in the shader graph. That's not a problem. It's been a while, so it'll be nice to actually get back into my shader graph. And so now it's converted into a Redshift material. It's just using the shader graph as opposed to CVD nodes. I'm not sure why it didn't let me convert it to CVD nodes, but hey, that's fine. So let's see if we switch off our volumetric lighting. Can we see this a little bit clearer? Maybe I will just take the texture and build it that way. So I actually downloaded the Diffuse map, which is this one here. And we can just create a Redshift material, open our node editor, and then inside of here, we can just drag and drop our diffuse texture. So if you're used to working with texture maps, this is the workflow you're probably used to. Drop that inside of here. And then drop it into our diffuse color. Maybe our reflection will just drop that on. Where is Carl? Here he is. Do I need to connect the Is it where, Dustin, do you know why, do I need to connect the UVs at all or anything? Is it where I deleted the polypaint? I'm not seeing my texture in.
You should be fine.
Hang on a minute, have I been stupid today?
Move the other windows here, Melvin.
Oh yeah, here we go. Good one, Ellie. Okay, I think I've just done something extremely silly and I've just realized I have material override on for this whole session, which is probably why nothing was working for me. Okay, let's go.
Oh, the Gobo too then.
There's another one.
Here we go. Round of applause for Ellie making probably the worst, most silly mistake she has ever made on a live session.
That is not the worst mistake.
Leaving material override on and then realizing 48 minutes into the session.
It's amazing. Good teaching moment.
What a moment.
I've never heard of material override, so this is education for me. That was great.
I think, yeah, I did like a clay render test and I have obviously completely forgotten about it since last week.
I love it though, because when you've been asking, I'm like, I have no idea, Ellie. Like what you're doing should be working. I have no idea. I
was like, look at this and thinking, why isn't this working? I was like, what's wrong with our Redshift? Like something's happened. Like, why is nothing working for me today? Oh, because you've left material override on. Good job, Ellie.
No, that's good. Okay. These are true professional moments right now. This is what happens in real life, people.
My brain is like, it's Monday. Doesn't want to work today. Okay, so we have our material. Yay. 48 minutes later. Cool. So yeah, we have these really cool colors in here. I've just turned off the Redshift environment, which is why we can't see our volumetric lighting. Amongst the many things I was trying to figure out what was going wrong. Yeah, so we have our really cool color. I love these colors. They're really like they're awesome and they really kind of bring them out. The one thing I am going to do is I know we talked about emission for the eyes and we want these scary red eyes, right? I think we can all agree that would scare the life out of Carl. Oh, actually, he's all one thing now, isn't he? So, ooh.
I was going to ask about that.
Okay. I wonder
if you just zoom in the viewport, like if you create the emissive material, and then you just zoom in one of your
selection.
Oh yeah, I would just select the eyes.
Yeah.
And run it. It's like workflow hack.
The super low-tech way is to create new spheres and just put emissive materials on the spheres in the same spot.
Okay, so
That's
we're just going to be, so you think just like grab some of these areas? Is that what you would do?
Yeah. So are they, because they're individual pieces? Yeah. So just select one polygon on the
Yeah.
eye, and then
Yeah.
press UW. And now you've selected the eye, and then you just move to the other eye, select one polygon. You could do them all.
I didn't know that UW was a thing.
Oh yeah.
Wait.
Total life hack right now, because
Wait, what is UW? What is happening?
it selects
Hang
the
on.
connected.
Shift click.
So if you're in UVs, for instance, like it will select the entire UV island based off of the one polygon, and
So
then
I do like polygon islands to groups sometimes, but I never knew about this. This is amazing.
Yeah, this is totally just a very quick way.
This is awesome. I'm also shift clicking for everyone who would like to know. Shift clicking and then UW, just so it doesn't then get rid of my selection.
Yep.
Wow, that's amazing.
So good. Right.
You don't even have to do that. You don't even have to store the selection. So now you just create a new material and then apply the material to that, and it automatically creates a selection tag for you.
See, Dustin, what would I do without you here?
Dustin.
Yeah, like I don't know. This is such like a great way to do it because I'm lazy. What you guys, everybody will find out if you watch enough. Like I'm very lazy, and so you find the most effective way to just get something done like that. And yeah,
these are awesome tricks that I just did not know. I would have such a more long-winded way. Yeah, polygon islands to groups. Then I just added that to the eyes, but then it would make all of the polygon islands groups.
So I used to do that route, and I think it was I don't remember exactly. I think it was probably just because I didn't need all of the objects right ungrouped, and so you start to kind of tweak things, and yeah, that was definitely a helpful part of a process. So you'll want okay, so your materials are actually, I think, in the wrong tag order.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Here we go. Right, let me make it a bit more emissive. Oh, Dustin, thanks so much for that. That was awesome.
Yeah, super cool.
I'm stealing that from now on.
The emission color, you'll probably want to make that a brighter, because you're sort of counteracting some of the dark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do that all the time. I'm like, why isn't my black shiny enough?
Okay.
Now we're talking.
You know what, if we'd done this plane in the spotlight thing now, that's why it wasn't working, everyone. Material override.
It's so great though. Like I feel like this is one thing. Like once you do this, you never forget it. So, and you saved all of our viewers like the hassle of doing that, you know? So,
I don't think I'm going to be allowed to forget it. That's going to be it now, forever.
But you still have the material made. Is it too late? I mean, too late to throw on the Gobo and show that technique again?
Yeah, we could just sort of like do that. I mean, I'm hoping this is me saying like, oh, now it should work. And it doesn't work. Yeah, so it should work. Let's do this. And then our orientation needed to be this one here. And let me just put it down a little. And then throw this dude on there. Yay. And then I am actually going to increase the scale, because I think it's all a little bit too fine at the mo. And then if I pull this up or down, something like that. And then let me increase my intensity just so we can kind of see a bit better. So now we're getting these kind of like different rays, and this is sort of what I was hoping for. And then we can change the noise and etc. to create more variation, and we can actually just hide our plane as well from our view. So if I go into my Redshift object tag, we can just go to override and hide it from our primary ray visible. And so now it's still having an effect on our spotlight and on our scene. And we just have a little bit more variation than we had with that particular texture. And we have more contrast, which is what I want. I want to block out some of those areas entirely. And then at any point, can we come back into our noise and can we make some changes and stuff like that? So let me actually just I might pull this back a little bit. Something a bit like that. So we have our dude sort of like looking like this. We've got Carl going. I'm also very aware of the time. Jeez, that went fast. Mainly because I made about 4,000 mistakes. Soz everyone. One quick thing I do want to show, which isn't actually something that I'm going to do in the final one, but in case we wanted to, let's say we weren't necessarily going into compositing, which is what we are going to be doing, and we're going to look at AOVs in a sec. But what if we wanted to just render out of here and wanted to add some cool little color things or some post effects? We can actually do that inside of Redshift. If we just hit the O key, not with that selected. Let's try that again. There we go. If we hit the O key, we get some settings in here, and we can do a whole bunch of different things with color management, with LUTs. There's pre-made LUTs inside of Redshift, but we can actually create some glow on these eyes, and we can just drop down our bloom. We can pull down our threshold, and then as I pull it down, you'll notice that we're starting to get some glow going on. Then we can increase our intensity, and it just adds a bit more sort of like mistiness to what's going on. We can then come in photographic exposure, and without going sort of like too much into all of these, we can sort of mess with our saturation a little. We can put in like a vignette, sort of pull this back, and then we can create more of like a gloomy, spooky looking scene. But as I said, you know, we're not worried about this because unfortunately, at least I believe so, that post effects doesn't work as like an AOV pass, so we couldn't then control that later on. So we would just switch these off, and then we can actually look at setting up some AOVs. So as I said, you know, this isn't like the final design. I just wanted to show some lighting techniques and then also some AOV stuff. And then what I'm going to do, I actually worked on like a little version of this just like a little bit before the session. I'm going to show you that one because I think it looks a little bit nicer than the one we've created now. But what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to create materials for the version that I'm then going to give to Chad. But yeah, I knew I wouldn't be able to create like an actual final design with all of those things because I'd want to spend like a certain amount of time on creating my materials, creating my textures for this shot, just to add to it a bit more. But before we do have a look at that like final one, I want to show you how you can set up your AOVs. And this is where like Chad, I really want your input here, because when it comes to compositing, there are so many different layers and multi-passes, which we call AOVs inside of Redshift, that it depends on the kind of thing that you're creating, and it depends what you want to then be adjusting and compositing in your kind of next stage of this workflow. So Chad, what would we, let me quickly get the AOV manager up. So here we want to set up AOVs, which are multi-passes, is a posh word for multi-passes inside of Redshift. All we have to do is come into our render settings, come into our AOV manager, show our AOV manager. And then in here, we have a whole bunch of multi-passes that we can choose from. And so from here, I was wondering, Chad, what kind of passes would you want to then be adjusting, bearing in mind this is not going to be the final version?
Yeah,
so
totally. I think so. Emission, like right off the top, we definitely want emission because I want to be able to control the eyes. And then like probably the most important one is the depth pass, but I think we need to do something in Cinema to set up a good depth pass, right? Don't we need to do something to the camera, or do we have a camera or something? No, Dustin?
No,
So,
you should be able to. Are you planning on doing this in like 32-bit, like rendering out an EXR for After Effects, or are we thinking more?
I
Yeah,
was thinking, yeah.
yes.
I was thinking, yeah.
As opposed to what?
yeah.
Just like
I mean,
what was it?
unless you're planning on just running with like an sRGB image, or just kind of
Oh no
doing
no no,
light
yeah.
post on a
No,
beauty.
no. Yeah, no,
Oh
we're
no no
thinking,
no.
yeah. EXR 32-bit
Yeah,
multipassers,
so
yeah.
you could
Cool.
add a depth pass to it. And then I don't believe you actually have to change anything if you're rendering out for an EXR flow. If you do, you could possibly test this because I don't really work too much in After Effects. But you could have one Z depth pass that is set to full, and then you could do one that's like Z normalized. Or sorry, not with that, with the depth mode.
Yep.
One that's regular Z, and then you could do one that's Z normalized. So the regular Z pass
Oh.
is going to give you like the full 32-bit like gamut, and then I believe the Z normalized is what I would use in Photoshop. That's going to normalize that so I can see the black to white values evenly there. So
Yeah, that'd be cool to get that. Because
Yeah,
usually
I
like
can
when I
too.
get like 99% of the times when I run out a depth pass, I must be doing something wrong because it's just like solid white. There's like no float values. There's nothing. It's just pure white the
yeah,
entire thing. And I don't know what. So I think I would love to see the difference between the Z and the Z normalized, but that's more like for science and less for like
yeah, I think
final
if I
thing.
remember right, geez, it's been a while for me working in After Effects that way. You might have to just pull a single channel from the Z Pass. We'll test that next week, but just
Yeah.
render them both.
Now we were
Yeah, I can
talking
do both.
before about the like I want to be able to isolate all the different objects, and there's just so many ways to do that with like object ID, puzzle mat, cryptomatte, object buffers. Like that's another option. We might look at that a little bit next week as well, of just going straight from Cineware and not using the AOVs, because it's a quicker way to work to just use the Cineware just for some of the AOV passes. Um, but um, but yeah, so like I I have a tough time. So like one of my questions with puzzle mats, and maybe you guys can answer this because like I don't know. Like puzzle mats allow you to use like RG and B to like isolate each object. And I think, probably puzzle mats like might be fine here maybe. But one of the questions I have is that like since you could only use RG and B, then when you're in After Effects, you bring that in After Effects, then like everything that you store is a red channel for the puzzle mat, that everything becomes red, so that you don't have each individual object. So like, I've seen a lot of tutorials where like it's like, okay, well, you could have a million different objects and they all have their own IDs with the puzzle mat, but then every single one of those objects that's stored in the red channel when you're in After Effects comes over just all lumped into one red channel. So
Yeah,
like,
so you would probably just run Cryptomatte for that because it will break everything out by material or by object identifier. Um,
okay,
I actually, because I do a lot of my work in Photoshop, I actually will oftentimes work with a Cryptomatte in a separate file, and then import those all as and images to place into alpha channels. So After Effects, I'm not sure how well After Effects handles Cryptomattes. That's just
there's actually a Cryptomatte effect that's just for Cryptomats, but it
okay.
is picky. Like a lot of times when I get like Cryptomats from other artists, like it'll just be like empty. So it's another thing that like we'll have to play with back and forth, and then next week we'll report back and talk about like what we did and best practices and stuff like that, because something about Cryptomats and depth passes eludes me, as apparently everything, like a lot of things do. Like I don't understand how a lot of things work basically. But yeah, I think cryptomats have been really, really helpful from my opinion when I get them to work, which is apparently there's a button that I'm not clicking or something. But and what if you did want to render out separately? I don't think you need to do that. But if like what Dustin was just talking about making a separate thing, like is that what direct output is for? Like if you enable direct output, it'll create a separate like file sequence that's
Yeah,
just
if you
cryptomat.
render direct, it
Yeah.
will, yeah, it'll create its own singular file. So you could try that. I mean, the other ones that I usually will use is probably like volume masks.
Volume mask. I've never heard of that. I don't know what that is.
Oh geez, or is it one of those? I call it a volume mask. It's probably the volume
Lighting.
volume lighting.
Yeah.
World
no,
position.
Lighting. Light groups. We need light groups.
Yeah, so we could do light groups. So we could set like each light to be a particular light group. Well, I guess like we'll talk about this like between us, like Chad, so I know what you want. But for the purposes of the session, you can actually set up new light groups and separate out your lighting, and you can then render out those different light groups as a pass, and you could have control, for example, of like the spotlight you could have total control of inside of compositing. Then you could have control of the dome light or your individual area lights. If they had different settings, you could set them up inside of here, name your light group. Let's take this light group 1, and then it's going to show inside of any of your lighting, so like your specular lighting, your diffuse lighting, as we can see here, volumetric lighting, we can render out our individual light groups as a pass as well to have, more control of our different lighting. So we can do that as well. I guess, we can, me and Chad will talk about what kind of light groups you'd want once we've got like a finalized design here. We can
and normals
separate things up.
Normals too.
And normals, is that what you'd want on here as well?
Yeah, and maybe we should do a
I suppose you would do diffuse lighting, would you want diffuse and specular? Those are sort of like the go-to that I do. GI?
Yeah.
Or
Diffuse, specular, shadow.
Diffuse, shadow, specular. Oh, what was the last one I just said? GI, where's GI? GI.
Oh yeah, of course.
Bit of GI in there.
World position? Was that one?
Yeah, world position is a good one. I also like to. Oh geez, is that in here? Light direction.
Oh.
Is that one?
I invented a new pass.
Are you
no, I might be thinking octane. I don't know. I've been in and out.
I can't see light direction.
Could you get the awesomeness pass? Can I get that? I'd like to isolate that in After Effects. Really bring that out.
No, I mean it's tough. I'm sorry. It's the hard part sometimes of using two different render engines back and forth.
I also want to quickly show as well once they're set up that you can actually come into your render view and view them. For anyone who doesn't know, once you set up your AOVs, if you want to have a little like view of what they're going to be like.
Oh yeah, can we look at the Cryptomatte and see if it shows here? Or maybe the Cryptomatte doesn't show.
You have to run bucket.
Yeah, I had to bucket render for Cryptomatte.
Oh, okay.
When was the last time you saved, Elly?
That was the best question ever.
Do it.
I don't want to save any of this one. I don't want a reminder of this, of all the mistakes I've made.
No, okay, so that looks great. What about does the depth pass show here?
What we got, depth.
Yeah, the depth will probably be all white because I think we're not running or looking at the normalized one.
No, we're not.
Yeah, Z normalized will show the grayscale.
Let me just, prevent that heartbreak as this crashes on me.
I mean, my heart dropped, and I'm like, wait a minute, like we just introduced all these AOVs, like let's go ahead and save. It's I don't know, I feel it's like my creative PTSD kicking in, and so.
It's smart. Does Cinema 4D autosave?
You can set up autosave, yeah.
You can set it up, yeah.
I like to live on the edge.
I have my stuff save every 15 minutes automatically. I have like 45 gigs of backups, like somewhere, just from the last few projects.
So
the worst thing
smart.
is this has happened to me before. I've been working on stuff and I forget to save. I'm like notoriously bad for saving, and I still haven't learnt my lesson. Like I'm still like living that risky roulette. Like, is it gonna crash?
That looks great. Yeah, Dustin, you just saved me with Z normalized. Oh,
yeah,
man.
it's pretty.
That's incredible. The rest of my life starts today.
That is cool. All right, so we have those passes. Yeah, so those are the AOVs that I imagine we're probably going to end up actually rendering out later this week. I'm gonna do some tweaking. I'm gonna do some more on the lighting. I'm gonna actually set up some materials for the rest of this as well. Let me just open up.
When would you say is like the last possible moment I can upload a brand new Carl before it's over for me?
Yeah, I guess we could talk offline about that, but like I probably need more of final-ish render passes in order to do stuff, because I'll create masks and things like that in After Effects.
Yeah, Chad, when would you want
to replace stuff?
When would you want the passes? Monday or before Monday?
Wait, what?
You just saw his brain. I didn't see your reaction because I can't see you, so I'm going to take it as a yes.
Oh man.
You're asking me like in the middle of the session for peer pressure, so that like.
Oh yeah.
Like I literally just started sweating for Chad. Okay, it's.
Oh my gosh.
No, go on. You tell me, when would you like them? Because then I'll tell Anna when I need the final model for.
I think we talk offline about it, but yeah, it's like as soon as possible, because I can't really do too much until I have AOVs to work with, and then at that point, it's tough to like redo everything. So like, yeah.
Okay. We can chat. We can chat about it. No pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. Feeling none.
Yeah. So just for the sakes of like saving my own self after this session, this was sort of like a little bit that I worked on beforehand, and it's using it's pretty much the same techniques. Again, it's got no materials on it. It's just kind of like some lighting and then some emission and a little bit of volumetric lighting as well. And I added like a redshift matrix to create some little bubble elements to try and make it look more like underwatery. So yes. So I guess we've overrun a little bit. Apologies everyone. Also, I'm very sorry that I left material override on. I have absolutely no words for myself for that.
Don't apologize. It's such a good learning moment. Like it reminded me. Okay, like I was sitting over here and I'm like, oh, I felt that in my heart. Like it's, it's good.
Oh yeah, God, I can't wait to rewatch the sudden realization, because I was like, it's okay, it's all right. We're pals here. It's fine. We can do this stuff.
We'll edit in slow motion, like whoa.
Oh dear, I hope so. Cool. Yeah. So thank you everyone again for kind of bearing with me being here. I wasn't sure if we had any questions. I know like we talked a lot. I wasn't sure if we had any did we have any questions from anyone? I've realized we haven't really asked much, but maybe we answered everything. I mean, yeah, Dustin, Anna, and Chad, all of their great input, great tips, advice, basically teaching me what to do today.
No way. What you made was awesome. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
I wish you could show like a before and after of like where you started like an hour ago to like right now. I mean, it's just incredible.
I think, do I have a before? No, I think I might have I saved this? Let's see.
Yeah, look at that.
So yeah, this is a little before. It's just thinking about it now. Because this is where we've got this subdivision on for Carl.
Oh,
Out of nowhere.
see, look at how
Okay,
different.
here is our before. This makes me feel a little bit better seeing this before.
See? We've gone on a journey today.
We have gone on a journey. Yeah, so it's been wonderful being on with you guys again, and all of our lovely people who are still here with us, who know that we love to overrun. I mean, that's the rules now, right? And I'm looking forward to sitting back and relaxing and giving you the reins, Chad, once I've fixed this and rendered it out. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to your compositing week and all the magic that you are no doubt going to do in that hour on this.
Thank you. I'm excited too. You all have laid some amazing groundwork and got a lot on my shoulders for next week, but I think it's gonna be fun compositing this and putting it all together. Got some cool ideas, so yeah, excited.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited. I'm gonna just sit and I'm gonna chill and I'm just gonna be like, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you add that?
I'll think of some ideas to make Chad's life more complicated by next week.
That's good. That's what I need.
That's gonna be our fun next week. All right, cool. Yeah, I guess we can wrap this up. Once again, yeah, thanks to Anna, Chad, and Dustin for all of your amazing help, suggestions, all the great tips that you guys have been showing, especially over this last session today. And thanks to everyone who's still here watching us live for any input and questions and just sort of comments that you've had. We really do appreciate it. And we will see you on next Monday's session where we round this all up with Chad and compositing, and I can't wait.
Oh yeah, I'm excited.
Cool. Have a good week, everyone.
All right, bye everyone.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.